differences in all plans. One of the things that I try to encourage the divorce attorneys to do is to very early on find out what the benefits are. Excuse me.
We both have a little bit of cold.
A little bit of a cold, right?
It's that time of the year.
To find out what kind of plan it is. And even though I mentioned that there are two basic categories, what you will find is that there are a multitude of variations within each category. So you need to find out who the employer is, who's administering the plan for the employer, find out how that particular plan divides the benefit. Because one of the things that I've discovered in my practice is that there are thousands and thousands of plans out there, and there are thousands and thousands of different approaches to divide the plan as part of a divorce, and everyone does it a little bit differently. I can remember very distinctly having someone come to me once, and he had been a miner in several of the copper mines up north of here, up in Gila County. And he had worked for several different employers. And he was getting divorced, and he had gone to one of his employers, gotten a form qualified domestic relations order from the employer, filled it out, worked it out with the employer how it should be divided. And then to save some money, he took that same form.
I can see where this is going.
He crossed out employer A's name, put in employer B, sent it off to employer B, and got back a letter that says, you can't do this, you can't do that, this is illegal. So
yeah, you need each one's doing that.
Everybody does it a little bit differently.
And it sounds like from what you're saying is if somebody's going through a divorce, they really need to get copies of certain documents, make sure they have copies of certain, what would those documentation be?
At a very minimum, I would recommend having the participant provide a benefit statement from the plan. I would also recommend getting the name and telephone number of someone at the employer who handles plan affairs, who's the administrator. If that person has a QDRO package, and a lot of employers do have a QDRO package, then my recommendation would be to get that QDRO package early on. It will tell you the plan's general approach as to how to divide a benefit. If you want to do something different than what's in the employer standard instructions, then you want to call the employer and say, if I do this instead of what you have in your document, will you accept that? Sometimes they will, and sometimes they won't.
Before I forget, let me just change the screens here for a second, and so you can get information. This is where you can call Brian if you have any questions and contact him. His number's on the screen, 520-577-5155. And as I said, this is a very complicated area of the law, so it's really important that you get competent advice so you don't make a mistake. And sometimes I think people really, they're concentrating on alimony and child support, and this could be a more significant asset than most, which also reminds me, and we talk about significant asset, is we talk a little bit about valuation of this. Now, it seems to me if you have a defined benefit plan versus a contributory plan, there's a difference in how you value those. And I've seen a lot of confusion with my clients. They'll say, well, I'm supposed to get $500 a month. And then, what's that? What's it really worth? Can you sort of explain a little bit about how you value, or what's the value of, since you said that it's a promise to pay in an IRA or a 401k, there's a money's there you can see. Here's the money is visible.
Well, to kind of start off with a humorous aside, when you go to the pension conferences, they tell actuary jokes. But a promise to pay does have a present value. And what it basically is if I were to put X number of dollars into an account today, and it earned exactly what I thought it would earn, and you lived out your life expectancy to the exact day that I was contemplating, according to the life expectancy tables, then if I put that amount of money in the plan today, it will pay you out the last penny out of that account on the date of your death. Does that ever happen? No. But an actuary can sit down and say, over a large population, these are the averages. If you put in X number of dollars for each participant who's accrued this type of benefit, then this plan is actuarially sound, and it will be able to pay out the benefits and pay out the last penny on the date of the last participant.
What you sometimes see in divorces, there's sort of a trade-off on assets,
right.
And somebody may keep the pension and somebody will keep the house or something like that.
Right.
So the value of the pension, getting that present
Yes.
value is a very important thing to do. And sometimes they'll just show I've seen them, they just do the employees' contribution, it's like $20,000, and it'll be a $300,000 present value or something like that.
Correct. A lot of the government plans, the Arizona State Retirement System, for example, are what are called contributory plans, which means that the employee has to pay some amount of money to be in the plan. Under state law, I think it's just taken out. As soon as you become state employee, it's taken out per paycheck. And there will be an account balance that appears on the annual statement from the state retirement system. That represents only a small fraction, in most cases, of the true value of the annuity that would be paid to the participant when he actually retires. So if you're dealing with a contributory defined benefit plan, a plan where the employee is paying a fee into the plan on a periodic basis, you do not want to take that contribution account as the value of the plan.
And it seems to be that
a lot of people do that.
I mean,
right.
Constantly. Oh, my pension's worth 20, and I see that over and over again.
No, it's not. It's worth a lot more than that usually. And what it really means is that your employer is putting in additional money to keep that plan solvent.
How do you get it valued? How do you get that actuarial value?
You see a competent actuary, and if you were to give me a call, I would give you the names of some people in town who do that kind of work.
Let's talk a little bit about how long you have to work before you can get a pension. In a contributory plan, there's no time requirement.
Well, if you have a defined contribution plan, again, we're dealing with a multitude of variations within a defined contribution plan. A 401k plan, for example, the employer is, or the employee is putting in money, and the employer may be matching that, and the employer may be making additional contributions. Whatever the employee contributes to that plan, the employee is vested in it. He's entitled to that money when it's.
Is there a time period before it vests?
For the employee money, no. What you put in yourself,
okay.
If you're in a 401k plan and you say, I want 2% of my paycheck taken out each week, and you're making $1,000 a week, 2% would be $20, I believe, if my math is correct. You're entitled, that $20 goes into an account, it's invested for you, and then whatever it grows to, you're entitled to that when you actually retire. The employer money that's going in is often subject to a vesting schedule. It can't be more than 6 years. And if it is a 6-year schedule, then it's 20% after the second year, 20% for each year thereafter. So once you've been in the plan for 2 years, the employer money that's going in, you're probably vested in some portion of that.
I've seen a lot of cases where there'd be like a 10-year vesting period. Is that?
That was very common several years ago, but not anymore.
So it's 6 years?
It's 6 years.
Okay, that's good to know. I didn't know that myself. It's good to know that. So the person's, if they haven't vested and they're going through a divorce, so they've been working, they've only had the pension for 3 years, what happens?
Well, that's not a very common occurrence. But what I would do in a situation like that is we have to sit down and discuss with the person with the alternate payee, the person who's going to become the ex-spouse, and talk to the employer. And there are a couple of approaches. You either take what's vested in the account now, or you defer the order until some point in time when the employee actually vests in the contribution. Those are the ways that I would handle it.
Okay. Are there other benefits, though? I mean, I think I've seen some over the years where the pensions have other qualities, not just the payout, but sometimes that there are other qualities to the pension, death benefit, like a benefit, death benefit, or things like that.